The Buffalo Bills just took a huge gamble, and no, it wasn't trading away 2 first-round picks and a defensive line player for Micah Parsons, though I think a lot of you guys wish it was that. It wasn't a flashy signing, but it's ultimately a roster decision by Brandon Beane and Bobby Babich that could define our entire defense going into 2025. And on paper, we have a position group that's thinner than pretty much every other position group in the NFL, and that was a choice. It's a bold move in August, but it's either brilliant or it's disastrous by January. And today I'm breaking down what that gamble really is and why it matters and how it really could be the difference between us having playoff tailgates and having a lot of fun, winning games in the playoffs, or actually just watching from home. But what's good, Mafia? My name's Colin. This is Crack the Table. We are all Bills, no breaks. Thanks so much to everyone coming by, subscribing, liking. I just really appreciate that. If you put a comment down below today from this video on your reaction, what you think, I'll reply to it. I reply to every single comment, but let's get right into it. The roster looks solid in most parts of our defense. While you can make a caveat here that the defensive backs, the safeties, and the cornerbacks are a little worrisome. And yeah, I would agree with that too. But that's not actually the gamble I want to talk about today. We've been talking about cornerbacks and safeties for the last 3 weeks, I feel like. But the risk is in the linebacker room. Buffalo only kept 5 linebackers, and that's actually one of the thinnest linebacking rooms in the NFL. Most teams on average carry 7, 8, or even 9, depending on the scheme. But the reason I think that Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane chose this is because of the way our defense is structured. We run a 4-2-5 nickel defense, which means that we're prioritizing speed and coverage over maybe some size and bulk. The bet is ultimately on versatility over numbers, and it's really a sign of confidence that we have some guys on our defensive line, or on not our defensive line. Yeah, well, there's some guys on our defensive line that we can trust, but also our linebacking core that we can trust. We're deep in the front 7, specifically on the defensive line, but we're thin with the linebacking core in the middle of the field. But I want to go through and just break down some of these guys. And the first guy I want to talk about is the heart of our defense. Just signed a new contract, right? 4 years, $50 million extension. Terrel Bernard is the captain. In 2024, he had 104 tackles, 5 tackles for losses, 2 sacks in only 13 games. And McDermott is like, this dude is the tone setter. And again, he's wearing the green dot right now for us, as far as I know. And the concern with him, again, just like I think many of our other linebackers on this team, is durability. Right, he's had a hand injury, a quad injury, ankle injuries that have piled up last season and led him to miss some games. But the bottom line is, if Bernard plays 17 games, he has all-pro ceiling and all-pro potential. But the next guy I want to get into here is Dorian Williams. And Williams is trending up fast. In year 2, he had 114 tackles. He played all 17 games, and he had an awesome PFF grade of 82.3. He's versatile enough to play all 3 spots in our linebacking core, and his pass rush is maybe his concern. He only had 1 sack in 2024, but the bottom line with him is that he projects to have 120 plus tackles, and there's some real Pro Bowl buzz around him as an ascending player. But the next guy we need to get into here is Matt Milano. And Matt Milano is, he's been injured a lot, so he's got some durability concerns. But when he is healthy, he kind of changes everything for us. In 2024, he only had 17 tackles, 2 sacks, and 5 QB hits, but his coverage skills are still pretty elite. Again, his concerns or his weaknesses are his availability. As a lot of people say, your availability is your best ability, and his abilities to cover or to get after the quarterback or some of these other things, they don't matter if you're not on the field, right? He missed 400 days of football over his last few years, right? Just because of his injuries. A layoff, that was I think it was 420 days long. It's crazy. But the bottom line is Milano can ultimately make this defense a top tier defense because of his coverage ability, because of the way that we could utilize him in versatile packages. But without him, the gamble looks a lot riskier. I think our coaching staff is going into this year with a boat of confidence, again, for a guy like Matt Milano to hopefully remain healthy and to play at the elite level that we've seen out of him. But the next guy I want to talk about is Joe Andreessen, who of course is like the hometown hero, the folk hero, undrafted in 2024, the Lancaster UB kid, right? The preseason leader in tackles, lots of energy and Hard Knocks, lots of even just clips and focus on him and Hard Knocks. But again, he's expected even on our defense or on our special teams to log a ton of snaps, 200-300 snaps. But his concern is maybe he's pretty raw in coverage, and he's really not ready for like the heavy defensive snaps. But the bottom line for the guy like this is he's a depth piece, and he's a special teams ace. If Bernard misses time, Buffalo Joe is going to be able to get in the game and give some level of stability along the way. But the last guy, which I'm in some sense really excited for, is Shaq Thompson, and this was a signing this last year who is a guy who's a former first-round pick. He's got 104 career starts. Not 104 career tackles, 104 career starts. And he played for McDermott in Carolina, right? He signed a pretty cheap deal, $2.5 million. He's a great value for our team, even though he's a little bit older. But he's praised by our coaching staff as a culture fit, right? The concern with a guy like Shaq Thompson, though, is his wear and tear. Right? He had an Achilles injury in 2024, and even now he's been battling a little bit of a hamstring injury. And so a year after an Achilles for an older player gives you a little bit of concern. But again, this isn't a guy who we're asking to come in and play 70-80% of the snaps. This is a guy who's going to play 25% of the snaps and probably stay consistently healthy, who can execute at a high level in a shorter snap count, which is going to be really helpful. Again, Shaq isn't going to be some all-pro, Pro Bowl star, but he's here who's going to be able to mentor some of these younger players, especially the Joe Andreessens of the world. But he's going to mentor the guys, but he's also going to steady the linebacking room. And so I think he's going to be a great signing for our team if he can be healthy and if he can have a level of explosiveness back after that injury to his Achilles just last year. But overall, just a little bit of this unit analysis and kind of the gamble revealed. Again, Buffalo only kept 5 linebackers when they could have kept a lot more, right? And we know that we have Jimmy Charlo and Keontae Jenkins on our practice squad. But again, when we look at this roster and we look at these teams, or when we look at our team, we really don't need a ton of linebackers. And so it makes sense from like a roster construction perspective. But again, 5 just seems really thin, especially with the injury history. We do love, the Hard Knocks darling of Jimmy Charlo and the potential of him kind of getting some more reps. He's only been on our team for like 2 weeks, which is crazy. But again, these guys on our team, these 5 linebackers are going to be pretty good. I think the upside is when Bernard is locked in, when Williams is ascending and Milano is healthy, he could still be elite and this whole unit could be pretty elite. But then on top of it, we've got a young guy like Andreessen, and then we got a veteran presence of stability with Shaq Thompson. We have the ability to have a very elite linebacking core this year, and I don't really think we're talking about that. Babbitt's scheme is actually built for speed and coverage, and we have every single kind of guy we need for that. It's not about heavy blitzing, and with the addition of our defensive line, the rest of our front 7, really with, Ed Oliver, of course, just some of these other guys like Dwayne Carter, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, even on the outside, Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau. We have got the potential and the makeup of a really, really strong front 7 that is going to wreck games. And even though we've got some woes in the cornerback room, even though we've got some woes in the safety room, and even though we're thin in those position groups, I think we're still going to be pretty good off on defense. But the bottom line, I think this is a quality over quantity bet for our coaching staff and for our GM and front office. Healthy, this unit can play like a top 10 unit in the NFL, but one injury could absolutely flip the script on that and change it to a liability overnight. If Matt Milano gets hurt again, or if Shaq Thompson is just kind of a dud and he's kind of washed, that could lead to major issues quickly. But Bills Mafia, is this linebacking room one of our hidden strengths, or is it maybe one of our biggest weaknesses? Why do you think they only kept 5 linebackers on our starting roster? Can Matt Milano stay healthy, right? Or does Buffalo become, one of the laughing stocks of the league this year on defense, right? And is Dorian Williams ready to step in as the next Pro Bowler? Is he going to further his ascension this year? Drop your comments below. And again, I reply to every single one. But hey, if you haven't already and you're still around watching this video, I just welcome you. Join the community that we're building here. I'm Calm. This is Crack the Table. Hit that like, subscribe, join us week in and week out. I'm dropping new videos every single day. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. I hope it brought you some level of value, perspective, or even joy. We're so excited. I'm wearing this pullover flannel thing today. It's like 50 degrees outside, which is awesome because it reminds me that football's coming. Got fresh cut grass outside. This is going to be a good season. We're here for it. I'll see you tomorrow. Go Bills.